got a few more people to come in. So, while you're preparing, go ahead and get a pencil, paper, so you're ready to take some notes today. We'll get started in about 60 seconds. Well, good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our next installment of our Teaching Tuesdays. We're so happy that you all could take the time to be here with us this morning. And our topic today is protecting your nest egg. And we have a lot of really good information for you. We have had a lot of feedback from our retirees in that, the information we're bringing on Tuesdays, the third Tuesday of each month, is really hitting home. And our retirees are very thankful that, we have this partnership going with the police and fire retirees. My name is Bonnie Norris, and I'm one of the district managers for the Association Member Benefits Advisors here in Ohio. And also with us today is Jim Kane, who is one of our other district managers, and he'll be speaking later on in the program. But before we introduce our main speakers today, I did want to just do a couple of housekeeping things. You folks will see there on the main slide, there is a QR code. So throughout the program, if you have other questions or want to contact us, you can just take out your cell phone, put it in the camera mode, hold your camera over that QR code, and then a screen will come up where you can put your information in, and any questions about what we're talking about, you can click on that, or even just to request one of us give you a call to further your knowledge base on this. So again, you can use that QR code. You can also put any questions that you have in the chat. That will be monitored, and we'll bring those questions out for the entire program here to hear and be able to answer those if at all possible, as long as they're not too personal. So to get us started today, and I will introduce John Green. He will be with us in just a few moments. He's our expert on this. But just to give everyone a better understanding of PFRO and AMBA and how we fit, PFRO actually endorses us as benefits advisors, us being the Association Member Benefits Advisors. And we're actually endorsed by over 70, that's 70 different associations throughout the United States. Here in Ohio, we're endorsed not only by PFRO, but also by the Ohio Retired Teachers Association, the School Employee Retirees, and the Public Employee Retirees. And one of the things that we do is help to bring solutions and information to problems and challenges affecting our retirees. And go ahead and advance the slide there, John, if you would. And one of the things that we like to do is to make sure that folks are in touch with their associations and know some of the things that's going up, and this platform has given us a wonderful opportunity to have the president of PFRO give us an update on what's going on with your pension and with the association. So with us today on the phone is Gary Monto. So Gary, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Bonnie.
Okay, so Gary, if you would maybe just cover, there's a lot of things going on with PFRO right now. So if you could just update our membership on that.
Okay, I've got a couple of items that are important to us as an organization. One of them is that our pension board of directors is looking at increasing the stipend for our healthcare starting in January of 2023. There's been no final vote on that, so we don't have an amount of the increase, but we've been assured there will be an increase.
Gary, that is fantastic news, and I'm glad you're able to share that with everyone. So again, the Ohio Police and Fire Pension Board will be doing an increase to the stipend that will take effect in January, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but we don't yet know the amount, but that is huge news. That is awesome.
Well, it certainly helps our retirees.
Absolutely.
The second thing that's come up across the table has been the Social Security Windfall Act. For those of you who are not familiar with it, so in 1986, the state voted to not join Social Security as a pension system. And of course, we were penalized by losing 2/3 of our Social Security upon retirement. And there are 8 states involved, and we are working with Social Security now and the government itself to try to rescind that order and see if we can't get our full benefits from Social Security. That would be another big windfall for our folks.
That's great.
The rest of the stuff, we have some housekeeping information. One, our dues notices for the year have been sent out, and hopefully everybody will be quick to respond to us and give us the needed funds to continue our fights and struggles for our memberships. The other thing is we have an annual play ball night where we go to the AAA League in Columbus at the Columbus Clippers. That'll be July 16th. You'll be receiving notice on that probably first part of next month. And
that will come in the newsletter, Gary? Is that where the play ball?
It'll be in the newsletter and should be a separate mailing just to talk to you about the play ball night. And Aon, which is our insurance group that handles everything now for the pension board, has been renamed. It's the same company, same people, same telephone numbers and everything, but they are now called A-Light. So if you get mail from A-Light, please do not just throw it away thinking it's nothing. That is the insurance company or insurance group, formerly known as Aon. It will still come double branded, which means it'll have OPNF and it'll have A-Light on the envelopes now.
Okay.
So don't throw that away. That is insurance that we work through. And if you want to get your stipend, of course, you have to have either the medical or the prescription drug program through A-Light.
And that's a great reminder, Gary, because A-Light, which was formerly known as Aon, handles your stipend money and the stipend reimbursements. But absolutely, folks, to get your stipend money, you only have to have, if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you have to have that through A-Light. Or if you're on a Medicare supplement, you do your Medicare supplement or your drug plan. You don't have to have both on there. And then one other thing I know that we just ran across this week too, folks, if you're on original Medicare, you should be receiving $107 on your pension check to help offset that money. And we are starting to run across folks that did not have that. So please check your pension checks to make sure you do have that 107 on your actual pension check for your Medicare Part B reimbursement. Aaron, anything else, Gary?
No, you just stole my thunder.
Well, there you go.
That was my last point of information. So I'm good.
Okay. Well, Gary, thank you so much. And folks, it's pretty exciting news that your stipend is going to be increased and that your association PFRO is in there fighting for your windfall elimination so that can get changed. So your association is truly putting your interests first. And Gary, thank you and your board for all that you do on behalf of the members.
Well, we're certainly working hard for our members. We continue on a daily basis. So hopefully we can accomplish all our goals.
Okay, that sounds super. So, and to continue that, one of the things as I've worked with Gary and the board, they always say, we don't want our members to say, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that. So that's really the heart of why we started these webinars. And today with us, we have John Green, who is with AMBA. And John brings an incredible amount of expertise when it comes especially to, information like this and protecting your nest egg. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can educate our members this morning.
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Bonnie. Good morning, Jim, and as well. And good morning, PFRO. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today. My name is John Green. I do work with AMBA down in Houston, a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who is a public school educator. teaches second grade. I've got 3 kids in all various stages of early college, marriage, and career, and started my schooling in Oklahoma, but spend most of it in Texas. And that's kind of why I do what I do. I am a product of a state employee household. My grandparents, my mother, my aunt all worked for the state highway department, and really appreciate what public servants have done for my family and how they serve. And so I've spent the better part of my career helping active educators and state employees understand what their benefits look like when they retire. So I want to share with you today quite a few things around this concept of protecting your nest egg. But before we do this, I just want to remind you, PFRO is out there, and the stuff that Gary shared with you is phenomenal. And they're out there protecting that pension, looking out for your benefits, the stipends, the changes, those kind of things, to make sure that you've got what you worked for, and to make sure that inflation doesn't eat up what you've worked for as well. And they keep you connected to your local retirement community, as well as back to the active community as well. And then that's where PFRO does, is they partner up with folks like us at AMBA to make sure that you've got those benefits that cover the gaps that you don't have through your retirement, and offer some discounts and some exclusive things just for being a member of the association. It's so important to stay a member of the association because you have access to these benefits as well. And some of those advantages of having PFRO and AMBA together are to fill those gaps that aren't covered from your state benefits, however you receive those benefits. They're portable, meaning they're not tied to a network. They're not tied to a pension check. You can move, doesn't matter. You can take them wherever you want to. But some of the biggest reasons that PFRO members tell us that they really appreciate having the connection with AMBA is that they can extend their benefits that they have access to through PFRO to their adult children who have maybe aged out of their benefits, or to their parents who are still living. And it allows them to be properly protected in the manner they want them to. And because so many of our police and firefighters retire at an early age than normal, many of them will go work somewhere else. Many of you will have a second career, but your parents are still living, and you may be responsible for your parents' care. With the proper planning, you can take care of that and not have to worry about taking additional time off of your second career to take care of a loved one. So those are some of the benefits that you have through PFRO. But today we want to talk about protecting your nest egg. And we're going to talk about this in a wide variety of areas. And it's very personal to me because as I get closer to retirement age, I'm concerned about all the things that I've saved up there. And so we're going to take a look at how you can identify what your nest egg is, what the components of your retirement, and that sort of that PFRO conundrum that Gary spoke about. My wife has the exact same issue in Texas. And so, like he said, there's about 8 to 12 states, depending upon whether you're a public school teacher, whether you're a public servant, state employee as well, that has this issue. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the components of your nest egg and the 5 biggest threats and the solutions to most of those threats. There's one threat that I've found out there that I haven't answered yet. And I'm hoping we can get some folks on the call today that can tell us what their answers are to that threat, but how you can have the best peace of mind and make the most of your endorsed options. So let's jump in here real quickly and just talk about the components of a stable retirement. Retirement has always been positioned to me as a 3-legged stool. You have components of each of these that make that stool stable. You remove any particular leg and that stool becomes less stable. You've got your retirement system. It could be called ERS for Employment Retirement System, whatever the name of it is. It's your pension. That's that stable leg. And whether you get a cost of living increase or not, or an increase in your stipend, that type of thing, varies by state. But that's usually a relatively stable leg of your retirement stool. The second is Social Security. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment, because for most people in the public sector, that's a stable leg as well. We'll talk about the conundrum we have here in Ohio in just a moment. But that third leg, the third leg that makes that stool stable, is your other savings. And that's really your nest egg that we're going to talk about today. But before we jump in and talk about what is and isn't your nest egg, let's talk about this conundrum for PFRO. And that's that Social Security conundrum there. because you haven't paid in fully into Social Security or haven't paid into for a certain period of time, same way my wife in Texas does, they do not pay into Social Security and the Social Security tax. When they retire, even though my wife worked outside of public service for a while, fully funded her 40 quarters. Many of you may have gone and worked a job before or after your police or firefighting career and fully funded your 40 quarters. You can have a greatly reduced Social Security depending upon fully funding your compensation for every year, that type of thing. It's a complicated formula. It's really a mess, but it really impacts the Social Security that you can expect, or maybe the survivor Social Security that your spouse expects if you pass and when you pass away. So that third leg, or the middle leg, in lack of a better term, in the stool, that puts you at a more unstable retirement that requires you to either, as Gary mentioned, work with other states and try to get this solved legislatively, or pump up your other savings leg so that you can have a more balanced retirement stool. And so we're going to go in and talk about how you can protect that, because in Ohio, just like it is in Texas for public school teachers, because that Social Security leg is not as stable, you really have to look out to protect that nest egg, that other savings nest egg leg, because that's where going to be the most of the weight that's going to come for your retirement stability. So when it comes to making up a nest egg, we've all heard about this. Hey, I'm saving for retirement. I've got my retirement nest egg, all that kind of stuff like that. Let's look at what is and isn't. First of all, active pension is not part of your nest egg. That's something that is relatively stable by law. They fund it. Actuaries are watching it all the time. You're going to get a paycheck as long as you're alive. And then depending upon how you chose to receive your pension, your spouse may get a check as well for a certain amount after that. Your spouse, their Social Security, those type of things that are just consistent payments, those are not nest egg. Your mattress money, or like Dave Ramsey says, your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months, whatever you want to call that, that mattress money is not your nest egg. That's something that you've got to take care of because emergencies pop up. Just this past week, I live in Houston. It hit 95. When it hits 95, my air conditioner went out. That's where my mattress money has to take care of that kind of stuff. Or are there any structured settlements? It could be lawsuits. It could be insurance claims, things like that. Those type of monies, whether they're periodic payments like a pension or a structured settlement or your emergency savings, are not your nest egg. Now let's talk about what makes up your nest egg. This could be a 403B, a 457, or a 401k for you and your spouse. It's that little money that you put aside in a separate savings fund that was growing in the stock market while you were working. Your IRAs, your individual retirement accounts, or a cash balance pension plan. Cash balance pension plans are becoming much more popular. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I used mine in just a moment. As companies, private corporations for the most part, move away from a traditional pension plan, they go to a cash balance plan, which is cheaper for them. It just puts the onus upon me to make sure that that lasts throughout my retirement years if I need to. CDs and savings, that money that you put away there, you get a little pay increase, a bonus, found money, you start saving it over there, or inheritance, something like that. Those are the components that make up a nest egg. That's what makes up that third, and in Ohio, in your case, a very important leg of your retirement to save for your stability. Okay, so we're going to talk about how do we protect this nest egg. We're going to talk about the 5 biggest threats to that nest egg. I pulled these from an article several years ago in USA Today, and then I went back and started looking for some new stats and updating those type of things. And in no particular order, the 5 biggest threats to your nest egg are taking care of elderly parents, the death of a spouse without life insurance, boomerang children, a medical crisis that you have, and then overexposure to the stock market as you age. So we're going to explore each one of these, kind of show you some stats around it, and then give you some endorsed solutions that PFRO provides on your behalf through AMBA that possibly could address some of these for you as well. Again, as Bonnie mentioned, if you've got questions, drop them into chat as we go through here. We'll have a period at the end of it. If we want to stop recording, you can hold up your hand on the reaction bar. We can take some live comments, things like that. But feel free to jump in there, since we do have Bonnie and Jim both that can monitor the chat feature as we go through there. So number one, again, not from number one in terms of threat, but just one of the threats to your nest egg is taking care of elderly parents. And if your parents are still living, like my mother is, it's a blessing. She's 81 years old, turned 81 a couple of weeks ago. My father passed away back in 2020 as a result of vascular dementia, spent the last 2 years of his life in a nursing home. We were blessed that he had purchased a long-term care plan because it was about $6,000 a month in a decent facility, not the best of the best, but a decent facility. What we find is, however, most people don't make preparations for long-term care. And what ends up happening is that almost 3/4 of all long-term care is provided in an informal setting at home by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. So think about this. If you just want to, take those fancy words, informal caregiver, informal at home, usually it's a family member. Usually it's a daughter. Usually it's a daughter-in-law that has to stop their career and take care of a parent, whether it is going over every day and taking care of mom or dad, moving them in with you, moving closer, something like that. And if you have a daughter or you have someone in your family that takes care of you, that means they've got to stop their career. And that not only can hurt their cash earnings or their income while they're taking care of you, but it may hurt their future potential earnings. If my wife had to cut short her education career to take care of my mom or her parents, that would mean years that she cut off of her pension eligibility. And you see the numbers here, and it usually falls on the female, about $300,000+ they can cut out of their income, providing for an elderly individual, for an elderly parent. And men, a little bit less so, but it is a growing concern, meaning that we are living longer. So that means that caregiving has to go on longer. And you see this stat down there, I've highlighted in purple there, that 28% of caregivers have been providing care for 5 years or more, up about 4 percentage points from about 7 years ago. So more and more of us, as our parents or ourselves maybe live longer, are relying on somebody to take care of us. And that means they're stunting their income for their family, for your grandkids, whatever it could be in that situation, and their potential pension or their retirement years as well. So the solution to this is have some sort of a care plan in place that you can provide for yourself and determine how you want to be taken care of. PFRO endorses several different plans through AMBA, a true traditional long-term care plan that allows you to decide whether you want to be taken care of at home, in an assisted living facility, or in a long-term care facility, or maybe have some money that can modify your home, that you can have, if you have a skilled nurse come out, but you've got widened doors, lower kitchen cabinets, things like that, pull bars in the bathroom, different things that can help you stay at home longer. Because most of us want to stay at home. My dad, we wanted him to stay at home as long as possible until my stepmother could no longer take care of him and he was not safe. He needed round-the-clock care before we moved him into a facility. There are different plans that I would call long-term care light, for lack of a better term. They're focused around being cared for at home, being cared for while you're recovering from an incident or a fall or something like that. So there are many different plans out there that allow you to have that peace of mind that, one, first and foremost, you, especially as public servants, have busted your tails for your career. Why would you want to have someone determine how you're taken care of? Why don't you take control of how you're taken care of? And two, it protects the person who is still earning income from taking off from their career, possibly stopping their living conditions as well. My stepmother was still working while my father had to go into a nursing home. She still needed to work. This allowed her to stay in their house and continue her career. She'd go see him every night. We know he was taken care of in a good manner. So that's one solution, or multiple solutions for one situation that could wreck your nest egg, and that is taking care of elderly parents. The second one is the spouse passing away without life insurance. And more than 2 in 5 Americans within 6 months of a spouse passing away would start to feel a pinch. Now, most public servants have what I would call decent life insurance that they rent through their state employment. Means that they've got multiples of their salary. that if they pass away while they're on the job, they would pay for their spouse. What usually happens though is when you leave your employment with the state, police, fire, teacher, whoever, most of the time that rented coverage goes away. You may take a small portion of it forward into your retirement years, depending upon the way that it's structured for you. But is it enough? Is it enough to, of course, pay for final expenses? But more importantly, is it enough that your surviving spouse and your kids don't have to then dip into the retirement savings that you have to continue to live their standard of living, that you can provide for a legacy, to pay for some of those bills that you may have left behind? Because your spouse can't call the pension board and say, hey, my spouse passed away, I need to double up this payment, I need to get more money. And then again, depending upon how you selected your pension, it's possible that once you pass away, your surviving spouse may get nothing, because based on the way that you chose your pension. So again, having that life insurance and knowing what's out there, knowing that threat is huge. And it's becoming more and more so because two things. What we find is that older Americans are carrying a mortgage longer than they traditionally did in the past. And so that means they may be passing away with still several years of mortgage left on a house that a spouse has to have there. Or two, they have taken out college loans for their grandkids or even for their kids that they're still paying on well into their retirement years. And college debt is the one debt you cannot discharge due to death or bankruptcy. It still keeps going on in perpetuity to the next surviving spouse, that type of thing. So having a life insurance plan can be one way that you can solve that problem. There are a couple of different endorsed solutions that you've got the ability through PFRO and through AMBA. There's a final expense whole life that's just a simple level, premium level coverage product that gives you the ability to know that I've got X numbers of tens of thousands of dollars that can cover me if necessary. And then there is a guaranteed issue life if you've got a little health issues, things like that, a little bit smaller, designed more for just those true final expenses. But it does give you a way in which you can cover that threat that could really hurt your spouse, that could crack the nest egg that you've saved up for. The third is a medical crisis. And we never know when a medical crisis is going to hit. The challenge is when it does, despite having Medicare, Med Advantages, Med Sup, good retiree insurance, coverage all across the board, medical bills still are the largest cause of medical bankruptcies out there. And we're covered, tremendous stuff now out there in terms of coverage from a medical basis, but we find, depending upon your situation, cancer, heart attack, stroke, the major things that happen to us as we age, we find that 60% of those expenses are not covered by Medicare, a supplement, an advantage plan, or any type of private medical insurance. And as these plans, as Gary kind of mentioned, they're trying to increase the stipend, or they're trying to keep the payments level, things like that. Plans, including Medicare, internally are raising deductibles. They are looking for different network plans that can rein in cost, and that causes sometimes many of the providers to be out of network. So even if you're in a Medicare plan or Med Advantage plan and you go to that network and have a procedure done, there's a possibility that there could be a provider that reads a scan somewhere that's outside of that network, and all of a sudden you get a surprise bill that you weren't expecting there. So as we age and you run across these higher incidences of stroke, cancer, heart attack that are the biggest health issues for seniors as we age, those things can really set us back and crack your nest egg and have you dip in to those situations. As I mentioned, I live in Houston. I fly all across the country. Invariably, when I'm flying back home to Houston, I meet people who are flying into MD Anderson to the cancer center, to our cancer center in Houston. Those costs aren't covered. And so that's a significant hit when they're flying down, staying in a hotel that's right near the medical center. Those type of things can really hit you in that regard. You've got some great cancer facilities up in the Midwest. Some of those are not participating in any networks. And so therefore they're considered experimental or something like that. Those expenses are outside of it. So when you have a medical crisis like that, the last thing you want to dip into is that big retirement pool that you've saved up to pay for your ongoing bills and things like that. PFRO and AMBA have some potential solutions. There are some cancer, heart attack, and stroke plans that give you lump sum of cash that allow you to use how you want to cover those 60% of your expenses that aren't paid for by Medicare or by the Med Advantage plan. Or you can use them however you want to, if it's for comfort items like anti-nausea medication, or you do want to fly to some of these more advanced cancer centers, something like that. You've got that money for you. Or some people will use it, unfortunately, if they have cancer at a late stage and they can't, it's not survivable, they'll use it for bucket list trips to prepare their family as well. There's some recovery plans when you have a heart attack or a stroke or a fall that provide for someone to come out and provide you for skilled care. So there's different things like that. And then also what we found as we go in and as Bonnie and Jim dig through the different Med Advantage plans that you have available to you, Med Sups, different plans like that, we find that one of the biggest expenses is emergency transportation. And that means that there may be some coverage for it in your plan, but most medical transportation, whether it be air ambulance or ground ambulance, they don't participate in any network. So you could be left with 80% of that bill on the hook, which for an air ambulance could be running into the 10 and 20 thousands of dollars out that way. There's some membership options that you have available to you as well to make sure that you provide and not have to cost anything at all. All right, the fourth one is one that scares me because I've got 3 kids in their 20s, and one of them is married and they're looking to buy a house. And if you know, house prices are going nuts. So my wife just slipped up and said, well, y'all can move back in with us while you're saving up. And I was like, you didn't talk to me about that beforehand. And I love my kids and I love my daughter-in-law. Boomerang kids can really wreck your nest egg. And more households, especially since COVID, are living together with adult children more than ever before. They've moved back in for whatever COVID reasons, moved out of the city, job loss, whatever it is, they've moved back in. And it can really stunt your retirement. 52% of boomer households who have children that don't live with them are fully retired. So over half, if the kids don't live with them, they're fully retired. That drops down to less than about 1 in 5 that have kids living with them who are fully retired. So if your kids have moved back, usually it's harder and harder to retire. Whether you've claimed retirement and you're drawing your pension, you may still have to work again. And because we have, as a society, waited and had children later in life, our empty nest years are shrinking. And that puts more pressure on us as well to have that time period in there. So here's where I want to, if you've got any answers to this, drop it in your chat feature, simply because I don't have a solution other than locking the door. You know, don't let the kids come back, make them promise to be your caregiver forever. Jim, I know you worked in the nursing home industry for many, many years. And there's things that go on in the nursing home that I don't want my son or daughter to have to wipe my backside, that kind of stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, I don't have an answer. If you've got an answer on how you can keep boomerang kids from moving back in and wrecking your nest egg, drop it into chat, share it with the whole group. I did this conversation with a group in Oklahoma last week, and we had some people jump in and say, hey, if they wanted to move back in, we set down an agreement, a written agreement, where they said, we will do these things. We will provide this amount of income to the household. So she had a very spelled out process before they moved back in. And so that's a big threat to your nest egg. And then finally, the one that we kind of I wake up every morning and look at the stock market and I close it real quickly. Overexposure to the stock market as we age is a challenge. And I've heard this phrase, I don't want to call it a stat, maybe it's a strategy all my life, is that maybe you should have in the stock market, take 100 and subtract your age. And that's the percent that you should have in a stock market. So, I mean, I've heard that, don't know whether it's right or wrong. Again, this is not personal financial advice, but taking a hit to your retirement nest egg savings when you can't make it up because you don't have enough time to make it up is really a problem, because we know that inflation's going up. We know that the cost of goods are going up, but we've got this nest egg here that's in the stock market. And those of you can think back 14 plus years ago in 2008, 2009, when the stock market crashed because of the housing market crash. If you were retiring just at that date, with your nest egg, you lost 50% almost of your value of your nest egg in one 14-month period. Significant amount. Granted, it's grown back up, but do we have the time? Do we know how long it's going to take? And somebody was talking to me about this a few weeks ago, and they said, think about this in terms of going to Las Vegas or going to a casino, and you've had a good run one night. You've been on the blackjack table and you're up $500. And you then have a little bit of a losing streak and you've lost 100. What should you do? Well, if you're like me, I try to make that 100 back up and end up losing 300 more. What you should do is probably take the money off the table, go to bed at night, knowing that you made some money that day, okay? We don't know what the stock market looks like. This is just a look at the bear markets where the stock market drops over 30% over a little over a year period and takes at least 2 years to recover. This is what's happened over the last 40 or since World War II. Now, if Jim or Bonnie and I knew what was going to happen with this particular stock market, we wouldn't be on this call. We would be down in the Caribbean, 3 big yachts side by side, having a great old time. But we don't know what's going to happen. And I look every day and I think, is today the day it turns? Is today the day I'm going to start making my money back? We don't know what that's going to happen in that situation. And so when the coronavirus first started, we watched our retirement savings drop 30% in 2 weeks. I was on calls with pension funds and they were going, all right, your pensions are still safe, but we don't know if COLAs are going to be there. Nobody knew what was going to happen at that point. Same thing was happening with our retirement accounts, our 401ks, our IRAs, 457s, all that kind of stuff. Granted, it bounced back up. We don't know what's going to happen at this time right now. So you've got to be prepared from a lesson standpoint. And so a lot of people threw it all over into the your CDs and your money market accounts. Well, if you look at what CD rates are right now, they're nothing. And inflation every month continues to eat away at that money. This is a screen capture that I did on the Monday morning last week. And I just opened it up and I closed it real quickly because I saw all the red. And I keep thinking it's going to turn green, it's going to jump back, that kind of stuff like that. I don't even look at my statements anymore because it scares me. Fortunately, there are some options out there that you don't have to worry about that. There are some solutions to solve that overexposure to the stock market and never have to worry about running out of income at a certain point. And I'll share with you my personal story here in just a moment. PFRO endorses a tax-deferred asset protection plan that allows you to set aside some money that you protect, that you have the ability to guarantee lifetime income and safety. Because most people don't fear death, they fear running out of money in their retirement. And when you see all that red in the stock market and you think, I've had a good run over a period of time, we've had a great run over the past 10 plus years, that is it now time to take some of that off that table and still take some gains out of that and not worry about running out of money. But it allows you, this tax deferred plan, to get competitive returns more than what you would get in a CD or a money market. It gives you the opportunity to have the potential of the upside of the market when and if it goes back up. But if it drops, you don't lose any money at all. So you're protected from any market risk out there for you. It allows you to have other features such as long-term care benefits. And this is why I did this for me. I had a cash balance pension plan when I worked for Allstate for many years in the early part of my career, but it was earning less than 0.5%. And whenever I was going to take it out, whenever I reached retirement age, it was totally my responsibility, meaning it wasn't like a pension plan that I could guarantee I'd get income all my life. So it was up to me to be responsible for it. At the same time, my father was going through his long-term care issues with his dementia. Because he has dementia, it makes it harder for me to qualify for a long-term care plan. The PFRO endorsed plan has long-term care features inside of it that do 2 nice things for me. I've put a chunk of my cash balance pension plan in it, and it grows without any risk of stock market. I don't have to worry when the red pops up. I don't lose any money in it. And whenever I'm ready to take money out of it, I can pull out a certain amount of money. If I have to go to a long-term care facility, if there's a need there for myself or my wife, I can pull out more without penalty or any restrictions. And say 10 years, 15 years down the road, I'm starting to take money out of this plan on a periodic basis, and I have to go to a nursing home facility, it will double my payment. It will double up what I get out of there on a monthly basis. It gives me peace of mind knowing I'm not losing any money when the stock market's dropping. It gives me peace of mind knowing that if I have to have a long-term care need taken care of, I've got it, and it protects the rest of my nest egg for my wife, for my grandkids that I hope to have someday, to leave a legacy so that anybody that's responsible or that I'm responsible for can still continue to live in the manner they want to be cared for. So it does give me some great peace of mind that I'm protected in that regard, because we've got to prepare for a lot more years of living. Once we reach age 65, every year you live past 65, statistics show you'll live an additional 2 years. And many people are living well into their 90s these days. And we've got to consider the impact of inflation. It's been pretty low for years. We don't know if this is a blip. We don't know if this is inflation here to stay, but you can see the impact it has on fuel prices, on food, that type of thing that we have to be responsible for. Life changes, medical changes as we go along, long-term needs, care needs, things like that. Those things happen. So we've got to make sure that that nest egg stays protected, that it stays prevented from getting those cracks in there. Because as we've talked about, just like in Texas and Ohio, for you, you've got that wobbly Social Security leg that may not be what we need it to be or expect it to be because of the manner in which we were paying into it as we were going up. So I'm going to open it up for questions now, and I want to do this in a couple of different ways. If you want to ask a question because you don't feel comfortable typing it into chat, feel free to hold up your hand on the reaction bar and we can unmute you. Or if you want to simply email Bonnie, bonnie.norris@amba.info. She can help you out that way. Or if you have your smartphone with you and you want to open up your smartphone, your camera feature, open up the camera feature, hover over that QR code. Don't take a picture of it, just hover over it. I'm going to show it to you in just a moment, so don't worry if you've missed it here. This is what it looks like. When you hover over to that QR code, a little yellow box is going to surround it, and a form's going to pop up. Simply hit that with your finger. It's going to pop up, and it's going to talk about learn about. You can select. I want to talk about benefits review, what all the stuff I get from PFRO, long-term care, tax-deferred asset protection. Put your association in there and hit submit. Bonnie or Jim will get that back. They will call you or have someone from their team contact you on that. So any questions out there, feel free to drop them in the chat, hold your hand up, use that QR code, email Bonnie. Again, I'll have this up at the end of the conversation today so that you can have it that way. I'm going to open it up here real quickly and let Jim share with you about the upcoming webinars that we have in June and July. So Jim, if you want to unmute there and share about how they can get involved.
Absolutely. Hey, great job, John. Really appreciate you stepping in. And yeah, we've got a couple other webinars coming up, Teaching Tuesdays. The basics of life insurance, basically June 21st, about the same time of day. A lot of people don't understand, do I really need life insurance? And some people don't. How much do I need? What's relevant? What's the difference between universal life and term? What's what's final expense? Really just kind of dispelling the myths and helping you understand, does it make sense for you? And if so, again, what police and fire retiree are endorsing. And then on July 19th, all about Medicare. That was the webinar that we first launched this series on. And we had both strong attendance and some technical issues all at the same time. We were learning. And now that word's gotten around, it was incredibly beneficial for several of our members. And what's going on with A-Lite and what your options are is always fresh news to folks, especially when I found out that we could potentially save them money, or the police and fire retirees endorsed option may provide, a better option from a spousal perspective as well. So please put those on your calendar. And if anybody has any questions regarding the tax-deferred investment option, please put them in the chat room, or and Bonnie and I will try to answer them. Thank you again, John. Really appreciate it.
You bet, Jim. I always appreciate being here, the opportunity to be here again. This is something that your association, that PFRO, is providing on your behalf to educate you on these issues. Make sure you tell your coworkers, your former coworkers, your friends about this. This is an excellent opportunity to get in and understand what's out there. Oftentimes you see on the TV, Joe Namath, Jimmy J.J. Walker, Tom Selleck talking about things that may seem a little confusing. Come here, learn about it in a non-threatening way. Ask questions. If you've got questions, I'm going to stop recording at this point.